And it is about to go down. And now with pre-scheduling, we have waiters, people waiting.
Oh, we don't ever want to keep anybody waiting.
No, I feel bad. It's like how I keep you waiting when I text you every morning saying coffee.
Yeah, but then there's also being fashionably late. That's not the worst. It's not the worst thing.
Yeah, it's all good. All right.
Me.
Give you a little hello. Give you a little Keanu. There's some love for everybody. All right, let's get this thing going in 3, 2, 1. We've made it a month into the regular season, and your fantasy team needs help. Mine does, yours does, Sigmund's does, everybody's does, and that's why we're here for the Waiver Wire show. Who to add, shut them down, hold on, and of course, Dr. Jene Bramel kicking things off with some injury quarterback situations. Dr. Jene, take it away.
Hello, friends. There are no new significant quarterback injuries this week. We're waiting to see if Andy Dalton is going to be able to return from his bone bruise in the left knee in time to play ahead of Justin Fields this week. The Bears are saying that all three quarterbacks, including Nick Foles, are under possibility of playing this week. So still consider week to week as a chance to play in week 5 does Andy Dalton, but could be Justin Fields again. Tua Tagovailoa moved to injured reserve, where Tyrod Taylor and Ryan Fitzpatrick are currently as well. Tagovailoa won't be back until week 6. Should have a good chance to be back that week.
And there is Dr. Jene Bramel with those injured quarterbacks and your quarterback list, Bloom. And hell, we could just talk about them all at once, really.
Right.
The upgrade list is this. Taylor Heineke, 5 to 10%, although we saw against tougher teams, it's going to be a little tougher day for Taylor Heineke. Jacoby Brissett, 3 to 5%. I mean, maybe don't downgrade your Dolphins as much as we thought, especially the way Tua was playing. And then there's Jimmy G for now because, well, he's still in there for now, and he's a 1%er. So a shorter quarterback list and some interesting situations to go over.
Not a lot of churn at quarterback, and really things that are more interesting if you play 2 quarterback superflex leagues. Taylor Heineke, and the reason he's an upgrade is because Washington's defense is bad. Washington's defense is going to be a get-right defense. They're playing Atlanta this week, so we'll see how far that stretches. But even on a day when Washington's offense wasn't doing much, garbage time and just having to be in a mode, because he only threw the ball like 24 times, allowed Heineke to have a pretty good fantasy day. Jacoby Brissett, a stirring comeback, even a comeback in overtime to extend the game. You see him using his legs. You see him making some clutch plays. It's still not a vertical pass offense, okay? So this is like Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle's deep speed. I'm not really sure that Jacoby Brissett is the guy to take advantage of that, but he is keeping the offense viable and a viable play for 2 quarterback superflex leagues. Jimmy Garoppolo, and see, the story here with Garoppolo is just setting that doomsday clock back a little bit. Maybe it's like 11:45 now. He played well, gave the offense what they're looking for. He does still turtle. He did have a few plays that I'm sure a quarterback with a little more fortitude, constitution in the pocket would have done better, but he's also making the plays within structure. Actually, the play action passes weren't working that well against Green Bay, so there's more there. Trey Lance is going to reduce his upside, but he's still a viable 2 quarterback superflex desperation play, and he's going to hold on to the job for at least, I don't know, it buys him at least 3 or 4 more weeks that strong performance against Green Bay.
It is the Audible, Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, Dr. Jene Bramel going through the waiver wire report, and quarterbacks wrapped up fairly quickly. Running backs, different story. Just wait till we get to wide receiver. Okay, so we go back to Dr. Jene Bramel, and now it's time for his injury report at the running back position. Dr. Jene, what do we got this week?
Lots of running backs to continue to watch for. Christian McCaffrey will be chief among them. Strained the left hamstring in Thursday night's game. Lots of conflicting reports from Carolina and the national media. There are some indications that this could be a few weeks, a little indication that there was a couple of weeks. Matt Rule himself said that it was a quote-unquote not a super severe hamstring strain. The Panthers on Monday said that McCaffrey would not go onto injured reserve, but they still have some time this week to make that decision. It looks like it's going to be a 2 to 3 week situation. Them choosing not to put him on injured reserve means that they don't believe this is going to be a little bit of a long-term injury, but they'll want to see how his early rehab goes this week before making any decisions. Not going to play this week. Outside chance he'll be back to week 5, but hopefully the lack of injured reserve means week 6 is in play for him. Dalvin Cook still dealing with a high ankle sprain. Some optimism toward the middle of last week that he would have been able to go, but as the week progressed, Cook didn't make as much progress as the team was hoping. High ankle sprains are always difficult for running backs to recover from. There's a good chance he'll be able to play this week. Whether or not he'll be limited and rotating with Alexander Mattison a little bit more remains to be seen. We'll see what his practice participation looks like on Wednesday and Thursday, but this doesn't look like it's going to be a long-term situation. The Rams are hoping to get Darrell Henderson back from rib cartilage injury this week. Josh Jacobs, similarly in Las Vegas, has a chance to return from his ankle injury after missing a couple of weeks of practice and game time. Kyle Shanahan wasn't very reassuring with Elijah Mitchell in his press conference on Monday. Still dealing with a right shoulder injury, Mitchell is, that we're not exactly sure what's going on. Some concern that he had some lingering weakness and issues with what was originally called a stinger and now is called a little bit more than a stinger. So we'll see whether or not it's a nerve injury that's going to keep him out of practice this week. Wednesday and Thursday are going to be pretty important for him. New injury to be mindful of, James White suffered a hip injury that looked a lot like what Ryan Fitzpatrick suffered back in week 1. The Patriots are still evaluating that injury. Ian Rappaport did confirm that it looks like a hip subluxation where the hip popped out and then back into the socket this week. So White is going to miss a number of weeks. Could definitely be a season-ending situation if he elects to have surgery. But like Fitzpatrick, this is going to be an injured reserve situation in a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks, and it could definitely be longer. Giovanni Bernard, dealing with an MCL sprain, was able to come back into the game last week. Doesn't seem to be a long-term situation, but running backs and MCL sprains, stability is going to be important. Could easily miss this week. Rashad Penny still missing time with a calf.
And that's Dr. Jene Bramel and Brian Sumner. Thank you for those pictures of Dr. Jene.
Oh, man. He's a good sport. Dr. Jene,
yes,
he is the very definition of a good sport.
Yes, and he's a much better man than you or I or Matt or anybody, although Matt's close because he's such a good guy. Let's get into your running back list, Bloom. This is available at footballguys.com. Upgrades, downgrades, waiver wire report by Sigmund Bloom. And let's go 2 by 2, baby. Okay, 2 by 2. James Robinson, Trey Sermon. Those are the first two. Robinson, 25 to 50%. Trey Sermon, 20 to 40%. And again, wide netting this for some people who are like, there's no way in hell James Robinson's available in my league.
Yeah, always a reminder, if you're listening to the show, you know that the app uses these numbers, and in some public leagues, James Robinson might have been dropped out of spite, out of impatience. And I think he's got to be the guy here because we saw a performance like last year. It's like Jacksonville's offense came alive. Robinson didn't care. He got the production we've been looking for, the production in the passing game we've been looking for, and hopefully on Thursday night. And that's the other thing. On Thursday night, we're going to get to see him against Cincinnati and put him on display. Everyone can remember that he's a very good running back. Trey Sermon, and see, what's interesting here is in running back, like you said, it's a long list, and there's some decisions to make. I'm going to give you my opinion, but I think that this is one where you're going to have to gauge a lot of different things here, Cease. We look at any waiver wire pickup at running back, and we have the variables of how big is the opportunity? How long is the opportunity going to last for? Quality of the situation, quality of the player, even the quality of upcoming matchups. So depending on your needs, this list could flip around, right? But if you're okay at running back, and not many of us are, why not take a chance on Trey Sermon? He looked fine. A little bit of an upright runner. You a little scared. You remember, was it Chris Brown, Cease? Those running backs that leave their chest wide open to just
Anthony
get hammered.
Thomas was like that too.
Yeah, so you kind of wish that Sermon would have a little more pad level, lowering, a little more body lean, so he wouldn't be able to get blown up. But at the same time, I think that you're seeing that he has the burst through the line. He can mesh with this. I understand that the team didn't trust him as much. Matt Waldman did a good job breaking this down on the top 10. By the way, if you're a Football Guy subscriber, you don't read the top 10. And if you aren't a Football Guy subscriber, Matt Waldman's top 10 in and of itself is probably worth the price of admission. So it's still the San Francisco running game. I don't know when Elijah Mitchell is going to be back. He didn't put him on IR. However, shoulder injuries can be a recurring thing. And the team might still back Elijah Mitchell, but the latest we've heard about Jeff Wilson, and some people might be asking, where's Jeff Wilson on the waiver wire report? Kyle Shanahan was cagey when they asked him. He's like, well, I don't really want to say when Jeff Wilson's going to be back. I don't want to put something on it. Then it'll seem bad if he doesn't come back. He said November. Could be earlier, could be later, November. So it's unless you have an IR spot that you could put Jeff Wilson in, it's hard to recommend him. We're looking at this as these two players. But I think these are the two players, Cease, that have the best chance of having sustained value over most of the rest of the year. But if you need someone for just this week, or you're just looking for a Christian McCaffrey fill-in, maybe you might prioritize some of these guys just as much.
Yeah, and we got that for you too. And by the way, some sage-like guidance, of course, from K1. We love K1. And Windows, he says, Windows, people, Windows. That's right. So let's 2x2 it again, two more.
Yeah.
Because there's Chuba Hubbard and there's Alexander Mattison. So again, 15 to 30% for both of these guys. And we'll get those two done, and then we got another little cluster for you as well.
And McCaffrey not going on injured reserve. So if everything goes okay, you're going to get maybe two more starts. Not two more because he hasn't got one yet. 2 starts out of Hubbard, who looked fine. He looked good. For a rookie especially. And those starts would be against Dallas and Philadelphia. Philadelphia's run defense not looking quite as scary in the Monday night game. So, Chuba just makes sense as your pickup if you lost Christian McCaffrey, if you weren't already carrying him. And you might say, well, Sig, I don't do that very often where people are talking. Referring to myself by my name feels really weird, even in a simulation. So you might say, well, Sig, you might say Bloom. Bloom, baby. Alexander Mattison might not even start this week, right? Dalvin Cook, I don't know if he was truly a game time decision because I think it was pretty clear he wasn't going to play, but he's going to be chomping at the bit to get back on the field, champing at the bit, sorry. And you've got Mattison looking so good, so maybe you get one start this week because Minnesota doesn't have to rush Cook back for this game against Cleveland. By the way, fascinating to see how Kevin Stefanski is going to defend the offense that he was one of the architects of. So Mattison may only give you one start compared to Hubbard's too. But what did we see? Wow. Mattison looks like he has really matured as a running back at this point. And he was very productive in the passing game. He's meshing with this running game as well. See, if the Vikings had to make a big contract decision on Dalvin Cook this year, after what Alexander Mattison did, maybe that would change the calculus of that decision because he looks like he has really matured and progressed as a runner. So I'm fine if I don't need someone this week, right? Or I don't need somebody to cover Christian McCaffrey's absence. I might prefer Alexander Mattison over Hubbard because Mattison has a better chance of having that long-term effect because let's face it, the injury seal's broken on Cook, and we used to think of him as an injury-prone player. We haven't thought of him like that, but it's a long season, 17 games now, and Cook is not one of those players who minimizes the wear and tear on his body by the way he plays. No, he lays it all out there. So Mattison is a guy that I would potentially even rank over Sermon if you're strictly looking at ceiling potential over the course of the rest of the year.
Well, and I look at this, and this is more of a Thursday night topic, Bloom, and how I miss Thursday night. This is how running back's going to be. We're just getting the seal broken ourselves just on 17-game season. Like, this is fantasy gyms. We're all going to have to be trained about dealing with running backs like this. It's no more like, when's this guy emerging? Like, no, you're just grabbing, you're sticking and moving, dodging, picking up guys. And the thing with Mattison that's been frustrating for me, Bloom, is like you see plays like a play or two plays in years past where you'd rub your eyes and be like, was that Dalvin Cook? No, it was Mattison. But when he got a larger opportunity, he didn't do anything with it till last week.
Yeah.
Learning, moving, going forward. Now the next cluster in Sigmund's waiver wire report happens to be the 12 to 25%, and we'll throw in a couple 10 to 20%ers there as well. So Nyheim Hines, Zach Moss, Cordell Patterson, all 12 to 25%. Peyton Barber is 10 to 20%. Some might ask, why isn't that a little bit higher, Bloom? And Sony Michel also 10 to 20%. Maybe, hell, some people are asking the same question. So let's talk about this next group of running backs.
Yeah, Hines, Moss, and Patterson are unlikely to be league winners. They don't have quite as high of a ceiling in terms of how big their roles can get. It'd be interesting to see if Mike Davis went down, if Cordell Patterson would be a true lead back, if Devin Singletary went down. But I think with Zach Moss's injury history, they're not going to want to ride him too hard. Patterson, again, could be interesting. It's the Atlanta offense that Patterson's producing as a sustained fantasy contributor is a testament to him. We'll start with Nyheim Hines. He actually outsnapped Jonathan Taylor in the last game. And he's good. He's a good player. See, people have been listening to the show for a while know that Naeem Hines is a good player. It's just a question of those undersized backs. Low Booker, right? He's always fall for the same kind of running back. But here is a team that has a dedicated role for an undersized back, a speed back, a good passing game back. And he's not going away. So he's going to be at least a good flex play, if not a matchup running back 2 in PPR leagues, in matchups where you feel like the Colts might be playing from behind. Is that one this week against Miami? I don't know. This might be more of a Jonathan Taylor week. But the point is, it is a committee, and that's keeping Hines with sustained value. Marlon Mack actually inactive. Zach Moss, and if you're just going by points per game, Zach Moss is like a top 12 running back because he missed the first game, had 2 touchdowns, and then had a touchdown last week. And this is looking like a prolific offense, and it's Houston. So maybe this is one where Zach Moss's role splitting with Devin Singletary is concealing that he can be a running back 1 in a year like this, because he's going to get those consistent touchdown opportunities. He just has to stay on the field. And I think with Moss, there's obviously a lower floor every week if he doesn't get the touchdowns. Cordell Patterson continuing to be involved. He's the best thing going in the offense, which is a sign that you need to get Kyle Pitts going. Sorry, neighbors. So Cordell Patterson, and then of course the other controversy with Cordell Patterson ceases. Is he a running back? Is he a wide receiver in your league software? Either way, he's got fantasy viability. Peyton Barber. Why isn't Peyton Barber higher? See, good question. Josh Jacobs is going to come back. He wasn't put on injured reserve. Now, I also think Josh Jacobs probably isn't going to be 100% this year, and it might not be long before Josh Jacobs is again on the injury report. Peyton Barber might even be a better start for a 1-week start this upcoming week than Chuba Hubbard, assuming Josh Jacobs is out, because it is the Chargers' run defense. I think we're learning that the Chargers' run defense is one, but not that this hasn't been true in previous years. It's one that we're going to exploit. And got to mention Eric Stoner, right? We were talking about the old, hey, diddle, Barber up the middle, right? Not a lot of teams. I think for the Steelers back in the day, was it Vogel? I don't remember the name of the running back. There's an old story about the Steelers. Basically, that was their offense, run up the middle back in like the late 40s. Hey, diddle, Rogel up the middle. And the famous story, of course, in Pittsburgh land is that Art Rooney said, hey, maybe we could call pass on the first play of the game. And he had one of his linemen, the coach, had one of his linemen jump offside so they wouldn't actually have to pass. These kinds of power struggles still present in the NFL, right, Cease? This isn't that foreign if you know what goes on behind the scenes in the NFL. So this week, Barber could have value if Jacobs isn't back, but you have to think Jacobs is going to be back soon. If Jacobs goes down again, not Kenyon Drake, Peyton Barber, the one with value here. And then Sony Michel. And Darrell Henderson, I would say he's more likely to play than Dalvin Cook this week based on the nature and severity of the injuries. So Sony Michel's window might be closed for now. That's the thing, for now. He is a high-value injury backup in a good offense behind a player, Darrell Henderson, that I think we know even his own team has some questions about his ability to hold up over the course of the year. You almost wonder, Cease, if coming back from this rib injury, Sean McVay lets up a little bit on Darrell Henderson, and we see what Sony Michel can do. And by the way, the Patriots, they really miss Sony Michel. Bill Belichick, the GM, not making good moves for Bill Belichick, the coach. Is Bill Belichick, the coach, going to fire Bill Belichick, the GM?
It'd be like Mike Shanahan, the GM. Back in the day, didn't do good things for Mike Shanahan, the coach. And you bring up something very important, Bloom. You'll be going back to these guys, right? Like,
yeah.
Hey, I picked up Peyton Barber and I played him 2 weeks, and then I dumped him, and then I picked him up in week 10. This will be a rotation. You'll be going through this, so keep that in mind. Fantasy football isn't love. It's not forever, okay? It's windows. Capture your windows out there. Final couple of backs to get to. Looks like James Conner, 7 to 15%, because when they get close, Conner's going to plunge it in unless Kyler runs it in. But still, like, that's their plan. That's what they've done. And then Gio Bernard, 3 to 5% are there as well. And some may be going, Bloom, well, where's the pass catching back? You heard Dr. Gene talk about James White there. Like, where's the pass catcher for New England? People are trying to chase that a little bit as well. Is it a Brandon Bolden? Is it a Ramondre Stevenson? Like, does it really matter?
It doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Just doesn't matter.
James Conner, and it's kind of like a Zach Moss weekly profile. You need the touchdowns, and that's what we have. He's not going to be involved in the passing game like Zach Moss is. We'll see if Arizona's offense is prolific. Maybe underrating Connor a little bit, but he did finally come through with those 2 touchdowns. And remember, he was in on the Kyler Murray bootleg for a touchdown, or there was a chance it could have been 3, although Chase Edmonds got the first and goal carry on that drive. You have Giovanni Bernard, MCL injury, so maybe this is not the time to get Giovanni Bernard. However, Tampa Bay's pass defense is not good. They're going to try to bring in Richard Sherman. We'll see how that goes. This is a team that's going to be in high-scoring games, and this is a team when they're facing offenses that are formidable and equal to their offense. Now, New England's offense this week I don't think is that offense. But you will see them maybe fall behind or get into more situations where Tom Brady's running the 2-minute drill to hurry-up offense, and that's Giovanni Bernard. That's how he got those 9. Giovanni Bernard was one of the best running backs to play last week. I don't know how you could have possibly had a crystal ball that would have told you to play Giovanni Bernard. Garbage time touchdown also helped. But at the same time, you can't ignore that. And see, this is going to be one of those things where it's going to be predicting game script. If you predict a game script where Tampa might fall behind, Tampa might have to rely more on the hurry up offense, then you're going to like Giovanni Bernard. Again, watch the injury report. But in PPR leagues, you have to keep him at the end of your bench. If anything, to keep him out of the hands of your opponents who can use him in those weeks, get a cheap 20 plus PPR point game. So Bernard becomes very interesting after being dormant for the first 2 weeks.
We call that jock blocking on this show. Yeah. We call on Dr. Jene Bramel, and this one's a big one. So buckle up because it's injured wide receiver time. Dr. Jene, what are we looking at in week 4?
Long list of players to watch at wide receiver. In Seattle, DK Metcalf has still been in and out of the game with some knee conditions. Doesn't look like he's going to miss any time. Tyler Lockett also suffered a knee injury. Not exactly clear what that was. Could have been an MCL situation. Could have been a meniscus situation. He also was able to come back into the game, and Pete Carroll was optimistic about him in his post-game press conference. You would expect Metcalf and Lockett to probably have some limited practice time this week, but both of them are likely to the probable side of questionable. D. Eskridge still not back to practice after a week 1 concussion in the concussion protocol. The team did not put him on injured reserve, so hopefully he'll be able to return this week. A.J. Brown is dealing with a hamstring strain, suffered in the first quarter of last week's game. He was not able to return, which is always a concerning sign. It's now being reported as a week-to-week situation. Does not look like Tennessee is planning to use injured reserve, but again, that's an open question this early in the week. I'd consider Brown doubtful to play this week, and hopefully we'll see him return in week 5. Deontay Johnson out in Pittsburgh, Juju Smith-Schuster as well, both dealing with injuries. Still unclear what is ailing Johnson's right knee. Didn't look very comfortable during the pregame session when he was just catching passes on Sunday. Wasn't able to practice at all last week, although this isn't thought to be a long-term situation. Another player that wasn't put on injured reserve. Still unclear whether or not he's going to be able to practice and play this week. Smith-Schuster is being called day-to-day with a rib injury. T. Higgins, unable to play through his left shoulder injury last week, despite a little bit of late week optimism, was not going to be able to practice on Monday, had the Bengals practice, and they've got a short week turnaround this week to the Thursday night game. We'll see whether or not he's able to go. I'd consider him questionable at best still. Tampa Bay dealing with some injuries. Antonio Brown remains on the COVID list after testing positive last week. He should be 10 days out from his positive test in advance of game day. That'll be kind of a Friday, Saturday situation with the isolation requirements that are there. So I would expect him to be able to return this week, if not by the middle of the week, certainly by game day. Scotty Miller is dealing with a painful turf toe injury that's likely to keep him out some time, at least this week and possibly beyond. Giants are dealing with injuries as well. Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton both fighting through hamstring strains. One of these is going to be worse than the other. It's not clear which one it's going to be, but Joe Judge out in New York said that one injury was a little bit different than the other. So very good chance that both of them can be considered doubtful to play this week, but hopefully one of them will be able to play, and we'll find out which one based on practice participation as the week goes on. Jay Hamler tore his left ACL, and it could be a little bit more than that based on the video. That's going to be a season-ending situation. Hopefully he's able to return in 2022. Russell Gage was unable to play through a right ankle injury. Marquez Valdez-Scantling missed some time with a hamstring strain in Sunday night's game. Elijah Moore dealing with a concussion. Jamison Crowder still fighting back from an aggravated groin strain just before week 2 rather. And Danny Amendola also missed the Thursday night game with a hamstring strain. So lots of players to watch there. Could have some players back soon. Traquan Smith eligible to return. Curtis Samuel eligible to return, as are Rashad Bateman, Miles Boykin, and T.Y. Hilton. Hilton is not going to be back for a while. That is a November return, probably at the earliest. We're looking at week 10 and beyond. Rashad Bateman should be back to practice from his core abdominal muscle repair back during training camp. John Harbaugh would not commit to whether or not he'd be ready to go. You'd expect him to probably take a week to recondition, with week 5 as the primary target date, but room for a surprise and a limited workload this week if all goes well. Curtis Samuel, Ron Rivera said, did a little bit better leading into week 3 that he had previously, but this is an oft recurrent groin strain through the summer months, and I think they're going to take the time to make sure that he's fully reconditioned before he comes back. So doubtful for week 4, but could be back beyond. Traquan Smith, not a lot of information about him yet. I would consider him doubtful to be back on the roster.
And there is Dr. Jene Bramel talking about those injured wide receivers, and there's a big 3 at the top of your list, Bloom, when 2 of them are teammates.
Yeah, right.
15 to 30%ers for Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders, and then toss it in Jacoby Myers there for good measure as well. Those are the top 3 on your list. There is a player everyone's waiting for us to talk about, and they'll be waiting a while.
Yeah.
But let's keep them in suspense. Let's talk about your big 3 first. Beasley, Sanders, and Myers.
And the big 3 is a 15 to 30% big 3. So, see, this kind of ties into what you were saying about this is how it's going to be this year. So you're going to want to sustain some balance in your waiver wire budget. There's just not a wide receiver that's going to change your season here, but there are wide receivers that can certainly help you and salvage a win. Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders, this just comes back to Josh Allen getting his form back. And also, as Chris Allen pointed out, going to have him on Thursday nights, remember, and on Sunday mornings. Buffalo's schedule, Houston, Kansas City, and Tennessee the next 3 weeks. That sounds good. And then on the other side of the bye, they're going to get Miami, Jacksonville, and the Jets. So 5 out of the next 6 games sound pretty good for Josh Allen and all of his targets. So that's Cole Beasley, maybe a little more weight in a PPR league. Sanders a little more weight in a 0.5 PPR, non-PPR league, getting those 2 touchdowns. So, and it's kind of like that Tampa offense where you might endure a floor week here and there from these guys, but look at the ceiling. Both Beasley and Sanders were 20-plus point plays in PPR leagues last week. Stephon Diggs people are like, what about us? Jacoby Myers. Okay, first of all, Jacoby Myers had 14 targets last week, and this is going to be game script specific, right? If New England and their defense can take a lead and nurse the lead, they can get some turnovers, they can get some special teams plays, it's not going to be a Jacoby Myers week, or at least Jacoby Myers is still going to have one of those alliteration games, 4 for 44, 5 for 55, something like that. But in these games, and certainly this is going to be a week like this, you might see Mac Jones throw the ball 50 times plus against Tampa Bay. And Jacoby Myers is his most valued, most trusted target. Another thing here, and man, the Patriots writers not writing impartial pieces about how the game went against the Saints. Jonnu Smith was actually down into the 40s in terms of percentage of snap counts. And the easy to see take is that the 3 wide set is better for this team than the 2 tight end set. Now, will Belichick, the GM, back off so Belichick, the coach, can let Josh McDaniels do that? We'll see. Certainly against Tampa, we're going to see that. Jacoby Myers, at this rate, could be a 100-catch player because of the way that Mac Jones is playing, because Mac Jones just has that rookie matrix of decision-making where he's going to be safer, he's not going to look downfield, he's not going to leave himself exposed in the pocket. And the other thing that we're seeing, Cease, Mac Jones is not exactly, there are some weaknesses, okay? Pocket presence, his ability to navigate, negotiate, plays outside of structure, not great. So we'll see if Tampa Bay can rattle him. We're all going to get to see that on the big Sunday night game.
Yeah. Do you know who a coach's favorite player is, Bloom?
The fullback?
Well, we always talk about like the hard worker. He's such a hard worker. He loves football, blah, blah, blah. Nope. None of that is true. A coach's favorite player is the guy who makes him look right.
Yeah.
So I don't think Belichick is immune from that either.
Right. Like this is why first-round picks get to prove that they can't play, and late-round picks have to prove that they can.
Right. This is why your coaches like Pat Shurmur are like, I want a guy that can run my offense because I have the offense. I'm the greatest guy ever. Okay, just ask him. Brandon Ayuk, 12 to 25%. Timmy Pats, there we go. Timmy Pats, 12 to 25% there as well. Curtis Samuel is 10 to 20%. And, no KJ Hamler, no Jerry Jeudy, just means more Cortland Sutton, more Timmy Pats. If he's still out there, Bloom, you pick him up. And speaking of pickups, their addition of David Moore is very interesting. But Timmy Pats is the guy. So let's highlight this next trio.
And again, these aren't necessarily going to be season changers, but Brandon Ayuk got a touchdown. Snap count went back up in the 80s in terms of percentage, and he's back in the offense. He's back in the circle of trust. We'll see what he does against Seattle. I still think he's not as valuable as Deebo Samuel, but remember, Samuel not exactly known for his durability, so if Ayuk was spite dropped in the first couple of weeks, time to get him back. You have Tim Patrick, and Patrick looks great. It's amazing, Cease. As other people have said, I think Jeff Parsons, who follows me and always have good interactions with, said, yeah, Patrick's been playing like this for years. It isn't that Patrick has just all of a sudden blossomed as a player. He's just getting the opportunity again. And now he has Teddy Bridgewater as his quarterback. You have to think that Cortland Sutton is going to draw more attention. See, I look at the loss of KJ Hamler as something that's going to allow safeties to keep an eye on Cortland Sutton, because now you don't have to worry about KJ Hamler road runner meet down the field. If you're the safety that's the last line of defense, it's probably also not going to help the running game. So even though KJ Hamler was dropping balls and not doing things to help fantasy teams, tactically, he still helps the offense. So Tim Patrick seems like a more likely target here. And like you said, Cease, the chemistry between Fant and Bridgewater still a work in progress. Patrick's not going to change your season. Not going to be someone who levels off as a top 20 wide receiver from here on out, although I could be wrong if he keeps catching touchdowns, but someone that can help you. And then there's Curtis Samuel. Taylor Heineke's keeping the offense viable. You still have Logan Thomas, Terry McLaurin doing well. However, what you like here is that Scott Turner, when he was with Curtis Samuel back in Carolina, when Dad let him take over the play calling, a little different than Dad letting you take the car for a drive in the driveway, right? So Norv says, "Go ahead, son, call some plays." And he used. I want to say that Curtis Samuel had like 9 carries during those 3 or 4 games. So there are ways for Curtis Samuel's impact to be felt, and maybe Curtis Samuel's impact helps this whole offense. Will he be back? I think he's returning to practice this week. I don't know if he's going to get activated from IR or get back on the field, but he's going to be back soon. And if he does get back this week, maybe it's one where you take a chance in deeper leagues because it's Atlanta.
I hate to be that guy, Bloom, but I've been driving since I was 9 years old because I grew up
on a farm. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I never rode a bicycle until I was 13.
Wow.
I rode a motorcycle before I rode a bicycle.
Yeah.
So
it's not really, I mean, you can't really get in too much trouble driving the old truck around the branch,
I did run my dad's Willie's Jeep. I think it's like a 59, something like that, into our scale house. So like a cinder block build. And then I didn't tell him. So the bumper was dented and the wall of the building was caved in.
Right.
And so I just put the Jeep back. And then a couple weeks later, Dad's like, "Hey, what happened there?" I was like, "I don't know." So not the brightest bulb in the shed, that's for sure. You're the brightest bulb if you grab Kendrick Bourne at 3 to 5%, DeSean Jackson 3 to 5%. Can the oldies be goodies, right?
Right.
We had the old guys showing up in a big way. Hey, DeSean Jackson scoring up in that box score. Way to go. Emmanuel Sanders, Egon Dewey. We talked about him. And let's talk about Kadarius Toney, Rashad Bateman, who may be back. Everyone's excited for that. Excited because Bateman and his route running ability, certainly a talented receiver, Bloom. Also excited because Marquise Brown drops everything. So you're looking for a trusted target. If you're Lamar Jackson, that could be Rashad Bateman. And the one player that is not on this list, but is going to be in this discussion, is Josh Gordon. We had someone in the chat room say, "How much do I bid on Josh Gordon?" And I was like, "Can you actually get money back? Can you get free agent bucks for not bidding on Josh Gordon?" I am not a believer. And listen, I know that McCole Hardman scored a touchdown. Stop it. Stop trying to make Josh Gordon a thing. Stop it. That's just, what was it? 2013? Seriously. When was the last great season from Josh Gordon?
Right.
So we're just chasing ghosts, everyone out there. And, I feel like Roger Daltrey, we won't be fooled again. or Wyclef Jean and The Rock. It doesn't matter. Like the bumper music, it doesn't matter. Like Josh Gordon's with the Chiefs. For how long? And we never make fun of people with the past addiction problems. We want everyone, no matter what your addiction is, because there's multiple things, to work through your problems and all that. So we're glad. It's like a Darren Waller situation, right, Bloom? Like we're super glad that Waller got past his addiction problems. And, now he's the best tight end in the league, but number 2 behind Travis Kelce, right there, tied, whatever. With Josh Gordon, it's not like, he's addicted to weed. I could play the clip from Half Baked, like, you addicted to marijuana? But, like, is he healthy? Is he in a good place mentally? Cool. Am I picking him up on my fantasy team?
No.
Hell no.
No. And look, let's get Gordon out of the way, and then I'll hit, winding up the rest of the waiver wire pickups this week. The fact that Josh Gordon, I know Kansas City, so at least that piques our interest, but if anything, he's going to blend in with Hardman and Robinson and Pringle. He's not going to become the guy who makes the 3rd target in Kansas City, something we care about for fantasy. But hopefully that allows us as human beings to focus more positively. And it's interesting because in fantasy football, one of the beliefs that is tested is, can people change? In different ways, not just a drug addiction. And there's a lot of different ways that we ask, can people change? If you were going after Tyreek Hill whenever it looked like he might be banned from football, and even though he wasn't, you thought, well, can he change? And there's another discussion here, Cecil, about all the things that happen that we never hear about. Although maybe that's changing incrementally, that there are more things that we hear about with players. What I'm saying is sometimes players, we think they change, but they didn't really change. But
they're just getting better at PR. I know I know players that haven't been re-signed because the PR department had so much. I know a player specifically that everyone loves. No one knew a damn thing of what he did, and he was in some stuff. Let's just say that. So like it happens. I think PR is just getting better at trying to cover it up.
Yeah. So
and they close the doors. It's the access game, Bloom.
Absolutely.
This. Like
Absolutely.
If I don't say super great things about the Broncos, guess what? We don't have any badges for you. Like, it's the access game, and that's how teams kind of control the message. Wow, controlling the message. Anyway, don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Well, anywhere you have money, Cease, anywhere you have money at stake, you're going to have attempts to control. So let's just focus on rooting for Josh Gordon, the person. That's all. Let's just focus on that, folks. Andy Reid is a good coach with his Big Tent philosophy, with his, you have a clean slate, everything that happened in the past, kind of like Pete Carroll, one of the last places that Josh Gordon ended up. He's still only 30 years old. Kendrick Bourne, again, he's that 3rd wide receiver in the 3 wide receiver sets if New England goes to that mode, or even just this week as a 1-week plug-in, because, again, Mac Jones could throw the ball a lot. Bourne looked good. Bourne had the best individual play for the New England offense on his touchdown. DeSean Jackson, much like Marquise Brown, could have had 3 touchdowns last week. And the only reason he didn't was because the pressure was getting to Matthew Stafford. He couldn't step into the throws. But DeSean Jackson still has that speed. Speaking of the Roadrunner, he still has it. And Tampa Bay, they don't have it. Again, going back to Kendrick Bourne. So the question is DeSean Jackson going to have this sustained role week to week, or is he one of those players that you put in bubble wrap? Now, that being said, it's Arizona this week. So the divisional games are important. Remember, the number 1 seed has extra weighted value because it's the only seed that gets a bye. So those 6 divisional games in the NFC West may well decide the number 1 seed. We got to get out ahead of Rashad Bateman. It's a low volume pass offense, although Bateman has the kind of game that makes a quarterback, unlike Marquise Brown last week at least, makes a quarterback want to keep going to him. Makes a quarterback like Keenan Allen, I know that we're going to get this play done. If I need him, he's going to come through for me. Lastly, Kadarius Toney. And what do we see with Kadarius Toney? Oh man, they asked the Giants, he's going to have a bigger role now, right? Shepard's hurt. Well, like, no. He certainly can make people miss with the ball in his hands, but again, this is why Toney and the Giants was such a mismatch in terms of the organization, philosophy, ethos, and the player. So here you are. You drafted Kadarius Toney so you could use him, so you have some depth, and they're reluctant to do that. Kadarius Toney could change the conversation against New Orleans just by whatever their plans are with that dynamic. This is Cecil. This is the riddle of Kadarius Toney, right? Individually, with the ball in his hands, he's an exciting player and a player that can help your team. But especially in a Joe Judge run team, you're going to care about things like showing respect to the coaches, showing respect to the process, showing up on time for the meetings, actually not tapping out of things like practices or something like that for reasons that are dubious. So what's going to win out right now? It seems like that Toney is not in the circle of trust is winning out, but players can change the conversation. It's media, right? I mean, if Toney goes out there and makes some big plays, then there's going to be a lot of pressure to keep playing him. So this will be an interesting week to see what Toney can do.
You almost did a Matt Millen impression there, because it's like even Matt Millen thinks Joe Judge is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I still remember when we were at the Shrine game, and it was our first Shrine game, and I'm standing next to Marv Levy. We're watching Mike Singletary coach, and we're like, who's this guy Dick Vermeil keeps talking to? It was Russ Landy. And so, like, I'm a moron, and I'm standing there next to you, and I'm like, we're talking about Matt Millen, and I'm like, I'm Matt Millen, I'm a moron, like super loud. 3 people down from us,
Matt Millen, right?
Was Matt Millen, and he walked by me with this ball cap down, and he just gave me this death stare, like I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah.
And so,
a wise man once told me, you never know who's listening.
Very true. You never know who's listening. Don't make fun of Matt Millen. Well, I mean, do, but just make sure you're not in front of him. We never make fun of Dr. Jene Bramel. We love him, and he loves us. But a brief tight end injury situation to go over for week 4. Dr. Jene, what are we looking at tight ends?
Thankfully, not too much going on among the tight ends. Rob Gronkowski took a pretty hard hit to the right side of his ribcage, was able to come back into the game. X-rays were reportedly negative. He's considered day-to-day, and I think he's probable to play in week 4. Anthony Ferkser has missed now 2 weeks with a left knee injury. It's not clear exactly what's ailing him. Was not put on injured reserve, so would give him an outside chance to be able to return in some capacity this week, but consider him questionable until you see him back on the practice field. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, y'all. That's it. That's it from Dr. Jene Bramel and your tight end list. Very succinct as well. Mike Gesicki at 10 to 20%. Bloom, let's just do him by himself, because that goes back to our Jacoby Brissett conversation earlier.
Yeah, Cecil, I suppose I foul on me for not putting more weight in the short sample we got of Jacoby Brissett after Tua Tagovailoa went out, because he very heavily targeted Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki. But they were short targets. They weren't high-value targets, and Will Fuller was coming back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But no, it's going to be – it's like that Ben Roethlisberger to Najee Harris and Chase Claypool model from last week. These are the guys, even though they're short, low-value targets, that Brissett's going to rely on. So now you have some momentum for Mike Gesicki. Indianapolis doesn't scare us that much. And you also have his great athleticism and ability to do things after the catch. Brissett's going to be the starter for at least 2 more weeks. So absolutely, we are liking Mike Gesicki. After 1 week, we weren't even sure we wanted to roster him because it would tempt us to play him.
Right. And how things change quickly around here. Isn't that what Joe always says? Things change quickly around here. Tyler Conklin, 5 to 10%, and Dawson Knox. They have.
Oh, boy.
It's like Happy Gilmore learns how to putt, right? Like they have a tight end. They learned how to use their tight end. Dawson Knox there. Gerald Everett did a little bit more last week. And by the way, Conklin, Knox, 5 to 10%.
Yeah.
Everett, 3 to 5%. Can there be more? And then Hunter Henry, and this ties into Jacoby Myers conversation, like, all right, 3 to 5% for Henry. So some interesting tight ends, guys that we've kind of been waiting on, Bloom, to do something.
Yes. How much longer do we wait? Well, we don't have to wait longer than this week for Tyler Conklin, who continues to be a big time player in terms of snaps and involvement in the offense, being on the field. But we finally saw that turn into enough targets, catches last week against Seattle. We'll see if that trend continues this week against Cleveland. Dawson Knox, and Dawson Knox is a tight end 1 right now because he's getting touchdowns. And with Josh Allen in this offense really coming alive with that schedule coming up, Dawson Knox had one of his best plays of his career. And see, this was a player that I think the Bills had to play him by default. I think maybe they would have tried to trade for Zach Ertz. Maybe they would have had other plans. They didn't really want to have to rely on him. They released Jacob Hollister, and we saw what Hollister did last week on that target. Maybe that wasn't the worst move, but by default, this is kind of like the Jalen Hurts situation where you're playing somebody that you're reluctant to play, but that player has a chance to show them, no, actually, I'm the long-term answer at this position. Dawson Knox is doing that, and his job's a lot easier with all of those wide receivers. Gerald Everett, here's why I'm watching Gerald Everett. He caught 5 balls. He started to pull away from Will Dissly in snap share last week. But remember, Tyler Lockett got a little banged up. DK Metcalf got a little banged up. Who's your next best pass catcher? It's Gerald Everett. Okay, so things could be converging for Gerald Everett. I'm not saying I'd rush out and play him against San Francisco this week, but there's value brewing there. There's value brewing for Hunter Henry. See, if they're going to 3 wide sets, I think you're going to see Henry on the field a lot more than Smith. And last week we saw Henry's snaps in the 70% range and Smith's in the 40% range. So I think that you see Henry, not a dynamic player, but a player who could become a red zone target, a player who could have some sustained value. Because, see, same as it ever was at tight end. You drafted Waller, you drafted Kelsey, you're feeling good. Kittle, at least coming on. But, that's the thing. Kittle, Hawkinson, Pitts. I don't want to talk about Pitts. Andrews is coming around. Even guys like Higbee, Tunyon. I mean, you're rolling the dice every week if it's not Kelsey or Waller. So even if somebody's coming in at 4 for 30.
We thought Fant was going to do more. And then Fant and Teddy just aren't on the same page. They're just not. So, and I blame Fant. Like, Fant's a little too early or too late in what he does. Teddy's a timing guy.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the timing of a Tim Patrick or a Jerry Jeudy, he's going to be at a certain hitch.
Right.
And watch his feet. His feet are so beautiful.
Yep.
Mwah. Beautiful. Where's my Keanu kiss? Like, here's what I think about Teddy Bridgewater's feet.
Yeah.
Does that sound weird?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it does sound weird. Rex Ryan's like, it doesn't sound weird. But like, if you're not at the right hitch and depth in your route when he's hitching through his reads, it's just going to be off. So tight end's brutal, man.
It is brutal. It is. And, it's another good thing, another little coaching point. We talk a lot about footwork when we're scouting quarterbacks or talking about problems with quarterbacks. And I think one of the most underrated things to watch is the way that a quarterback's footwork is aligned with the design of the play. And it's just, that's one of those things that you don't even have to doubt with Teddy. And I know, did you see the story about Teddy and Justin Simmons last week? I always got to take a little Teddy moment,
Yeah.
Just they do the break prayer in the middle of the field, and Simmons was being interviewed, and he realized he missed the prayer, and who was waiting for him to say, "No, man, you didn't miss it. It's cool. Come on, Teddy.
It's Teddy.
It's Teddy, man. It's Teddy. He's a special dude. I mean, we don't get to not talk enough about the players as human beings,
right?
But we root for Teddy here in this house. We root for Teddy Bridgewater.
Oh, and certainly in New Orleans. Y'all love him in New Orleans, right?
He rode his bike to the games.
He should have been the one to take over for Breeze.
Yes. That is something in this house, literally sees in this house. My wife, diehard Saints fan, Kate, says, could have been Teddy. Could have been Teddy. Could have been Teddy.
Could have been Teddy. That's right. Well, there is something on this show that we do each and every week that we require your participation. It's all about you. It's all about the help that we need. And heavy week, rough week, tough week. And there's just times in life and in fantasy football where you got to do a little scream therapy, right? It's fine. It's okay. Go out to the woods, go out of your cubicle, go outside your office, go out in the hallway, wherever you're at, and help us. Join us as we go through this. It's therapy, Bloom, but it's also celebration, right? So it's both. It's like excitement, it's enjoyment, and it's your turn to join in, because there's just sometimes we need to look up to the heavens and join in with me when you scream, cue the Chuck D! Bloom!
Yes.
Bloom! I just hit puberty. Who are some of your week 4s? Shut them down.
See, this gives me an opportunity, because I thought of you when I saw this. Because, I thought of you when got to see Earth, Wind, and Fire and Philip Bailey with a 4-octave range, okay? Ooh. which is impressive from Denver, as you
Yeah.
pointed out. Do you know who is one of only like 3 or 4 singers that has a 6 or more octave range?
Well, there's 2 that I know of. One is Mike Patton.
Yes.
And the other one's Jeff Tate from Queensryche.
Yeah. Mike Patton.
Mike Patton is a genius.
Yeah.
A literal genius. And they canceled. This is going to get totally off track, but whatever. I'll cut it out of the audio side. They canceled Mr. Bungle and Faith and More shows recently because Mike's going through some mental health issues, and he's been very forward with it and be like, "Hey, this is just part of, what we do and what we should do." So it's important for us to talk about mental health and. While fans like me are bummed the shows are canceled or whatever, that doesn't matter. What matters is he in a good spot? So literal genius, and I'm glad that he's out there, like a Brandon Marshall, wide receiver, talking about mental health and, helping to get things right for everybody out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-care, right? The most precious thing is humans. See, I want my brain, this is how much late stage capitalism skews us, because I want to say like human capital or the human resources. No, just humans, man, just human beings. And no amount of commerce or no lost revenue is worth the loss of a human being or the loss of the viability of a human being. However, there is the loss of the viability of a fantasy player sometimes that we have to deal with. So James White, I mean, some of these there's not a lot of clear like drop with prejudice guys, and you have the injury guys. Devin Singletary, man, I feel bad because Singletary had that long touchdown run. Singletary looked good in the fourth quarter against the Steelers, but if he's not getting red zone looks, he's not getting a lot of looks in the passing game. Why are we holding on to Devin Singletary? I'd almost rather have Samaje Perine or someone like that, because at least there's a chance that they'll change my season. Robbie Anderson, wow. Sometimes we reverse engineer some of this stuff. Reunited with his old quarterback, who he made some beautiful music with. We also have this extension that he got. It's all going to be great for Rob. No, Robbie Anderson is, I think, behind Terrace Marshall. At least Dan Arnold got traded, but I don't think it's going to really matter. Am I going to wait around for Darius Slayton? Probably not. Am I going to wait around for KJ Osborne to bounce back? Hey, now that Minnesota's defense is pretty good and the running game's on track, no. Obviously, we're dropping KJ Hamler. Juju Smith-Schuster's a tough one. I guess with Juju, once his rib injury is better, he's going to get a lot of targets. And Deontay Johnson will be back soon. He should get a lot of those short targets. Here we are, back to Ben Roethlisberger throwing the ball 58 times and really being, it's kind of harsh. And I see, for me, it's therapy to take part in this because it's better than crying, right? Like he's the laughing stock of the NFL, right? Yeah. I mean, Roethlisberger was the laughing stock. He was the punchline of the NFL this week. The Steelers are the punchline of the NFL this week. But as we see with Najee Harris, with Chase Claypool last week, even when you're a punchline, you can have some predictable fantasy value. But at the same time, if Juju comes back with Deontay Johnson, I just don't know. I'm not going to tell you that Juju is going to be more valuable than Tim Patrick, for instance, or more valuable than Jacoby Myers. I'm probably dropping Juju for those kind of guys this week. And then the tight end churn, right? How about Big Bob Tonyan? At a certain point, even if it's a touchdown every other week, even if there's big 20, 30-yard plays in this offense, if Tonyan's topping out at 3 or 4 targets a week, remember, Marquez Valdes-Scantling is back in the circle of trust. Marquez Valdes-Scantling made a terrific catch on that touchdown last week that I think shows that he's the number 2 target in this offense now. And then you have Cobb, and you have Allen Lazard, and you have the running backs. I just feel like I'd rather play Dawson Knox. He has more of a chance to score a touchdown. Tyler Conklin has a better chance of a big game. At least with Hunter Henry, with Gerald Everett, you have a chance of sustained value. So Big Bob Tonyan might be going to the chopping block.
Well, while you have players that you are shutting down, there's also those players, and no matter how we try, Bloom, we try to be, very robotic about this. Like, I have to do it. It's not football business. It's the business of football, the business of fantasy football. So you try as you might not to use your heart, but our heart's always there. Yeah. Especially for a couple of softies like us, heart's always there. So there's some players you just got to hold on to. And who are some of those players to hold on in week 4?
Yes. See, this is like Old Yeller. We don't have to have tears at the end, Old Yeller doesn't have to die. You can keep these guys. Daniel Jones, I know it was bad against Atlanta. He'd lost a couple of receivers. We just want to see if rational coaching. In the quarterback, we have a couple of rational coaching tests. The other one is Justin Fields. Oh, this is more of a Thursday night conversation, Cease. But if Myles Garrett is dunking on you and saying, we expected them to move him around. We expected to have the pocket, not be just behind the horrible tackles they have. We were ready. Don't you think, Cease, if the Bears had run the game plan that Cleveland was preparing for, even I'm not saying that the Browns got hung up by assumption of rational coaching because they were like, oh, really? You're not going to move him around? You're going to treat him like
they made it easier for him.
Yeah, so it's not like it hung them up, but they were prepared for a rational game plan. So do you think Nagy will get it? Maybe. It's Detroit, so let's see. I'm not going to go away from Justin Fields quite yet. I want to see if Nagy knows how to read. Or has access to press conferences. I'm not going to drop Tyson Williams. Hey, remember this, Nick Boyle's not back yet. Once Nick Boyle is back, a lot of things are going to start to click for this running game. Tyson Williams has so much more juice right now than Latavius Murray. I'm going to try to hold on to him. And Latavius Murray to a lesser extent. And Damian Harris, even though Damian Harris had a bad game, and look, Damian Harris can't pass block, or at least they don't trust him to pass block. I think the stat that came out, I think maybe, I don't know, it was Evan Lazar or Andrew Callahan, that he's given up pressure on 28.7% of his pass block opportunities. That's horrible. That's terrible. That's terrible. And they traded away Sony Michel. So that's why you're going to see Brandon Bolden. That was James White's role. But when they get a good game script, not this week against Tampa, Damian Harris is still going to be that guy. So I wouldn't have a spike drop for him. I would hold Sterling Shepard just because of how stable his value was in this offense. Much like holding on to Justin Fields, let's hold on to Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney just for this week and see. Riding a roller coaster with Rondale Moore. I'm going to wait. He got tackled at the goal line, okay? Don't spike drop Robert Woods. Don't. I would rather Robert Woods just languish on my bench and not end up in my lineup than drop him and have him come alive, or Cooper Kupp gets hurt, or who knows what, because it's a very robust fantasy production, fertile area. Don't drop Kyle Pitts. Don't. Okay. Don't drop Jared Cook. Much like Bobby Trees, Robert Woods, it's a very fertile fantasy environment there for the passing game. With the Chargers, I think Johnny Smith would give one more week. He had a terrible game, probably the worst game of his career, but again, Bill Belichick, the GM, especially against Tampa Bay, there are big plays to be had if Mac Jones can hang in a little bit longer, if they can block a little better for him. Johnny Smith could be at the end of those plays. Look, even on the play that he bobbled into the pick six, he could have turned up field and maybe had a big 20, 30-yard run after catch opportunity there. So I think you're not going to see Johnny Smith go away this week, but if he doesn't do it on Sunday night against Tampa, he's going to be on the other segment at the end of the Waiver Wire show.
It is the Audible, the Footballguys.com podcast. It's Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Boom, Dr. Jene Bramel, bringing you the latest and greatest fantasy football news and information right here. And check out our YouTube channel. Make sure to do all those YouTube things, like Sasha says, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And thanks for checking us out at Football Guys TV, youtube.com/FootballGuysTV, and all of our other shows, including the Dynasty Newsletter show. Adam and Chris doing a fantastic job. Of course, our mailbag show, very, very popular. And doing so very well. The IDP Blitz, Bloom, you're checking in once a week with some IDP information as well. We've got our YouTube shorts there, Dynasty show, of course, Chad and Jordan, fantastic stuff here on our YouTube channel. So thanks everyone for watching and checking out our other shows in addition to the Audible. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Many thanks to y'all for watching. Many thanks to y'all for listening. He's Sigmund, I'm Cecil, and there's Dr. Jene. He's fantastic as well. So we're the Audible, everyone. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.